Hey everyone, it's Lainey and welcome back to the channel. Today we are reacting to a video that's coming to us from the film theorist. This is the film theory on The Moon Woke Up. So if you're subscribed, you know that these are my favorite videos. This is my favorite series, so I'm really interested to see and hear what they say. So let's get right into it.
The end of the world is here with The Moon Woke Up, a brand new analog horror series that is not only one of the most creative stories I've ever seen told here on YouTube, but also one of the biggest and most ambitious. And if things go as they are, it's only gonna get more terrifying.
I am obsessed with this series.
Hello,
we just watched episode 9 yesterday.
The show that's always orbiting your subscription feed. Though it looks like we're about to crash into the planet. Quick, subscribe to make sure the videos don't get destroyed on impact. So, loyal theorists, I always try to keep an eye out for any analog horror series that might cross my feed, whether that's here on YouTube, Reddit, or Instagram. At Forest First, by the way, drop me a follow and send me any cool series that you find. And boy, oh boy, let me tell you, I got really excited when I saw this one pop up. A creepy, horrific face plastered on a celestial body staring down at Earth.
Can't look at the moon the same way.
That is exactly the sort of thing that I dig, like personally, and it's the perfect sort of horror to theorize about. This is The Moon Woke Up, a series created by Mr. Friend right here on YouTube.com, all about a world where, well, the moon is woken up. Some eldritch entity has taken control of the moon and other celestial bodies as well, and caused our closest cosmic neighbor to smash into the planet, wreaking havoc on the world's population. Now, the survivors are trying to figure out why this has happened, as well as survive the destruction of the world as we know it. It looks like Mr. Friend has actually been making these sort of horror animations for a while now. I actually remember some of them popping up on my feed regularly. That Thalassophobia one was so creepy. Absolutely his biggest hit yet, with the first video having a staggering 28 million views and rising. And man, I can see why these videos took off. Because he uses tools like Blender, Mr. Friend is able to capture a really uncanny visual style while still feeling grounded.
Looks so good.
Honestly, big analog horror, annoying orange style faces on planets make for great thumbnails. But even beyond that, as the series has continued and gotten bigger and better, it's mixed in satirical comedy with the horror, creating something akin to Starship Troopers or Helldivers.
Citizen, need a friend?
It's also expanded its story, going from a creepy VHS found footage video to an epic that spans literal star systems. And because of that, there are tons of mysteries packed into the series. Mysteries that you know that we have to try and solve.
Giant moon titans.
That's exactly what we're gonna do today, loyal theorists. We're going to break down exactly what's happening in this story, try to put together all of the pieces spread out across the 7 episodes released so far, and see if we can use them to figure out where the story is going. Okay, so this is up to episode 7.
And we've seen 2 more.
Is going to get much bigger before the end of things. But just how big? Mythologically big. So put on your robot arm and drink your moon juice, loyal theorists, as we shoot into The Moon Woke Up. The Moon Woke Up
not
begins
drinking
with
any
some
moon
astronauts
juice
on their way to the moon, and given the timeline we're given just a little bit later in the series, it's likely that these characters are meant to be the Apollo 11 crew, including Neil Armstrong, Buzz Aldrin, and or Michael Collins, the first people to walk on the moon. However, as they approach, 2 dark spots open on the surface, a pair of eyes gazing out at Earth before a gaping mouth opens. Suddenly, the moon
they get crashed into
crashing into the planet somewhere in Africa. In a later video, we're shown just how devastating this is,
tidal wave
billions of lives instantly and destroying much of Europe and Asia. But that isn't the end of things. The planets Jupiter, Saturn, and Uranus have also woken up and approached the Earth as the video ends. Episode 2 then begins with a flashback to shortly before the impact. A man walks down the streets of New York, coming across
and then the man on the street is talking about it.
Chosen ones all over the world being transformed.
The awakened ones will
that mask
by
is
the
creepy.
awakened ones, he's talking about the planets. So we get to see an example of a chosen one immediately after this. We cut to the UK, where we find a child drawing pictures of the planets with their creepy faces. And when he turns to face his father,
I have to tell you one more time.
His face is the same grotesque one we see on the moon and the planets. This must be a chosen one. Finally, we are taken to Namibia, where we see a cult of worship the moon having carved the moon's face into the ground. Clearly, there's some weird analog horror goodness happening here, whether it be through some sort of telepathy, or radiation, or magic, or sci-fi shenanigans. People on Earth can be controlled or taken over by these awakened ones. Jump forward 5 years after the impact, and things things are bad, with
5
billions
years
dead
after.
and millions starving. And
Yes,
worst of all,
and then the
basically
rats.
all water has dried up.
Yeah.
Stands at 3.2 billion, with nearly 90%
Look at the skulls everywhere. Oh no.
and our major oceans having all but dried up.
Fun fact, those numbers are actually correct for the population in 1969. There were about 3.6 billion people on the planet at the time, 90% of which would be 3.2. So
Okay.
good on you, Mr. Friend. Anyway,
They did
things
their
aren't
research.
much better by episode 3, where 10 years have passed
Yep.
since the impact.
They
Jupiter,
started
Saturn,
rebuilding
and Uranus
a
have
bit.
surrounded the Earth, but haven't really done anything hostile towards
They're just
us. It's
waiting.
at this point that I would like to point out that the gravity of these massive planets being so close would
Would have
absolutely
pulled-
wreak havoc on the Earth.
Yeah,
But
we
that
would
might
have
be the
been
least
pulled out of our
worries.
orbit for
And
sure.
It seems like Mr. Friend might have actually considered this.
Our new celestial neighbors continue to hover some 9 million kilometers from Earth, just shy of the Lagrange-influenced disturbance zone.
Okay.
Yeah, so the Lagrange influence disturbance zone is a real scientific
Yes.
concept. Now, this is very simplified, but basically, this is the area between large gravitational bodies where an
Yes.
object will find equilibrium. Basically, it won't be
So their
pulled
gravitational
towards any
pull
of the
isn't-
other
yep,
objects.
isn't
So
moving the
here
Earth
is kind of
just yet.
stuck in the middle of space. Finally, the area around the moon's impact site is now known as the
Umbra
Umbra Zone and
Zone.
has thousands of kilometers of land that is dangerously irradiated. This is just not a place you want to be. All
Nope.
the efforts to keep life on Earth going are being spearheaded by the Frontline Research Initiative
Friend
for Earth's New
Industries.
Defense, or FRIEND Industries. We love a good acronym. FRIEND is being backed by basically every
They are
world
not
leader
your
in
friend.
government that's still alive.
Spoiler
basically
alert, they are
making
not
them
your
the
friend.
de facto ruling body of the surviving population. According to episode 4, they're also the largest employer on Earth now, with popular programs in weapons development, water reclamation, marine corps,
Human
and
repopulation.
repopulation. That last one is incredibly popular, as
That
you'd
was my
imagine.
favorite.
Anyway,
It's
Friend
so
attempted to
funny.
launch several probes to investigate the planets of Jupiter and Saturn, though not Uranus, because
Naturally, nobody wants to get close to Uranus.
of course,
Naturally.
things don't go quite to plan as the probes launched
That's
are
funny.
destroyed by several of Jupiter and Saturn's moons, all of which are awakens that fly out of the planet's mouths. It's just
yes.
truly creepy stuff.
Just
and it
shooting
looks
the
like
moons
humanity is
out
going
of
to
the
be
mouth.
stuck
I
here
remember
for a long
that.
while. Anyway, we then cut to the point of view of a Friend Industries Marine with a cool
Yep,
robot arm
cool
as his
hand.
squad is heading into the Umbra Zone around
And the guy
moon.
with the
We get
wheel.
a ton of world building here about how the outside world functions, about a growing worldwide black market,
Yes.
and the fact that people are still
Drinking
being
the
turned
moon
into chosen
juice
ones like we
and-
saw earlier in the series.
Put your masks on. Don't want the radiation turning you into one of those moon-infected. First it was the
Moon-infected.
cosmic frequency turning you into one of those. Now it's the radiation. It's all bollocks.
Yeah, this is definitely a giant thread they're going to be pulling later in the series. But before we get more of this, the group are attacked
Yes.
by a pair of these moon-infected. One of them just looks like a normal person, while the other is tall, lanky. It's lost most of its human
Yuck.
characteristics.
I don't
Kinda
like
looks
it.
like a humanoid moon, doesn't it? It's unclear what's going on here. Like, is this taller one an alien, or someone who's gotten like more infected, or someone who's just been
I don't
infected
know. You know,
longer?
I
If
thought they
had
were
to
just
guess,
moon people.
It's probably that last
smaller
one. I bet
moon
that the longer
titans.
you're infected, the more you turn into one of these creatures.
And the bigger your
But
smile
before the
gets.
POV character can be killed by the monster attacking him, a huge light appears in the sky.
And the hand.
A void opens up in the
Yes.
space behind Jupiter, and a giant hand reaches
Yes.
out, plucking it out of the sky. Wait, what?
Yep.
Yeah, crazy.
That
Episode
was
5
crazy.
gives us another point of view of this event, as other hands reach out and also take Saturn
goes-
and Uranus,
yep.
seemingly ending the threat. Though not without the deaths
No.
of a few innocent Friend astronauts.
Yep.
Of course, this absolutely freaks everyone out. Understandably so.
After years of chaos and uncertainty, what we once
There
thought to
they
be our
go.
greatest peril has been eclipsed.
But
Yeah,
Friend
but
takes
let's
advantage of this
wonder
and declares the situation
where that giant hand is coming from.
150 years now pass, and by the 2130s, humanity has started to thrive
2130s.
again. Under Friend's leadership, incredible leaps have been made in technological
Yeah,
development.
they've come a long
giant
way. Look at
wall
that
has been
giant
placed around
wall.
the Umbra Zone. Cities have been rebuilt. Space stations now orbit the planet, protecting us from asteroids that used to get sucked in by the gas giants. And
Friend
Friend has even
Gate.
started building a space gate around
Yep.
one of the rifts that the giant hand hands came out of. But despite Friend's efforts pulling humanity back from the brink of extinction, I'm skeptical that their intentions are entirely pure.
You are
we see
right.
that they're
You are
performing
very, very
experiments on
right.
living human test subjects that are certainly going to be painful. Like, I don't want to know what they were going to do with that chainsaw, dude. We also see a lot of people locked up in a friend pen while screaming in the background.
Friend pen,
during the
we
secret
just
taped
saw
merging.
that
And
on
back in
episode 9.
The Doomsayer in New York calls himself Mr.
Friend.
To be fair, this is the name of the creator of the series, and friend is a common enough word, but it was a connection that I couldn't help notice. But the most
I
worrying
noticed
thing
it
of all
too.
to me is how they've been using moon juice. Yeah, I've been trying to find the best place to put this, but a recurring element here in the series has been a sort of
Consumption of
radioactive,
moon
glowing
juice,
pink
yeah.
liquid that seems to be coming out of the moon. We see rats eating the
Picked
stuff,
up on
puddles of
so
it in the
much
Umbra Zone,
information
and most
within the first
concerningly,
7
vats of it being
episodes,
used in friend
a lot of which we've
experiments.
seen
And
in
this far
episode
future,
8
they've
and
even
9
built a
now,
giant
but that's
structure on the
before
moon
he
to
made, or
extract
after
it.
he made
This stuff is
this.
what's powering all of the incredible technology in this future, but some people believe that it's causing the Chosen One mutations.
It's gotta be that moon juice, mate.
And in this same
I'm
scene,
not
this
drinking
guy
any
also
moon
says that
juice.
there's an entire black market selling this stuff, which
Yeah.
Friend is calling
Element 75U.
Now, if you know anything about
75U.
chemistry, you'll know that putting the word element with a number can give us a lot of information.
Oh,
you know how
I never
elements
took
on
chemistry.
the periodic table are given
I
an
took
atomic
astronomy.
number, and that's how they're ordered? So, like, hydrogen is element 1, gold is element 79, etc., etc. These atomic numbers represent how many protons are in the element, and the
Okay.
higher the number, the heavier the element.
Okay,
Anyway,
so element 75
is known as rhenium, and of course, I had to dig into this stuff to see if there was anything we could learn about the moon juice from the element. And
Okay.
honestly, what I found, well, there's a lot that doesn't line up, and a lot that is kind of
Ooh,
interesting.
I'm so interested. What
rhenium
is
a
it?
solid metal. It's
Okay.
usually gray and not glowing pink goo. It's also a stable element and rarely dangerously radioactive, so not particularly close to the moon juice there either.
Huh.
It's also one of the rarest metals found on Earth. But
That's interesting.
interestingly, there seems to be even less of it on the moon. So,
Oh.
like, it's strange that there be so much of it here in
Moon
the
juice,
series,
but
right? Well, maybe,
there's
but given
less.
some things we found out later in the
Okay,
series, the
interesting.
planetary body in The Moon Woke Up might have had way more than the moon because of other circumstances. All that being said, this
'Cause it
may just
wasn't
be a
actually
case
the
of a
moon,
creator
and it was
choosing
a moon
cool,
plant?
sciencey sounding phrase
Planted
for their
to look
mysterious
like the
juice
moon?
in their lighthearted sci-fi horror series. But hey, it's always fun to explore the options and learn a little bit, right? Anyway, we see the results of Friend's experiments of the moon juice on human subjects in
Yes.
episode 5.
Yeah.
They inject a human candidate with the stuff, and
Ugh, right
all
in
of a
his
sudden
stomach,
he's able
dude.
to use tech powered by the moon juice to destroy one
destroy
of the
the
Grey
moon
Chosen
people.
Ones.
Yep.
It's crazy stuff, man. Oh, and also the person we see here in this point of view is almost certainly the same Marine we see earlier in the series with
Yeah.
the robot arm.
Yeah.
I mentioned that he's being woken up from some sort of like cryogenic stasis, and
Defrosting.
he only has one arm. It seems like a weird detail that they'd add to this character when there's already been another character exactly like this earlier
Yeah.
on. And they give him a new robot arm in this scene. I like fully expect him to become a recurring character later in the
Yes,
series.
and we see him
maybe one of
again.
the astronauts in one of the future episodes.
We saw
but
him in
hey,
the
we'll get
last
there.
two
Which brings us to
episodes.
episodes 6 and 7, which are probably the most ambitious to date. Like, the
Yeah.
series is turning into legit science fiction with an
I love
interstellar
it
plot.
so
Here we
much.
follow several astronauts as they open the Void Gate
Oh,
and
yeah,
travel
they've-
through it, but
Yep.
they're not alone. Neptune awakens
And
and
pretty
chases
sure they
after
got
them,
stuck
destroying
there.
one of the ships and forcing them to exit the void around an alien planet.
Yep.
Here we see a large tentacled monster orbiting a planet as it pulls a moon from its gaping maw and
Big
puts it
old
in orbit
hole.
around
Yep.
the alien world. Apparently, these things visited our solar system in
Years
10,000
ago.
BC, destroying the Earth's moon and replacing it with their awakened one, along
Exactly.
with the gas
It was a
giants.
plant.
Anyway,
It
the
was not
tentacled
the real
monster
moon.
then approaches Neptune and sticks its
Maybe that's why
tentacles
that
into its
element was
eyes before
there.
another one of those massive hands appears and grabs it. One of the surviving spaceships follows the hand, while our point of view follows the tentacle monster as it leaves the solar system.
Yep.
Though they're attacked by dozens and dozens of awakened moons,
Yeah,
forcing
out
them
of
out of
its
hyperspace
hole
and
again.
into the orbit of another alien planet. This one with signs of life and 2 moons stuck to its surface,
Stuck
just
in it,
like
yep.
Earth. So that's the story so far. Well, unless you count a video called Secret Tapes. This video is great and
Okay,
funny,
I need
by
to
the
go
way,
watch
go
the
watch
Secret
it, but
Tapes.
it's
I
really
saw
more of an
it,
ad
and I
for
haven't
Mr. Friend's
I haven't
merch
actually
than
seen it
anything
yet.
else. Oh, and speaking of, we here at Theorist have heard your feedback and brought back some classic feeling theory wear with a couple of hoodies and shirts and socks. Like the black hoodie is my absolute favorite. I need to get my hands on one of these like right now. So please go to theoryverse.store if you want to check any of that out. Shameless shilling aside though, what's really going on here in The Moon Wakes Up? Why are the planets and moons looming over Earth? Why did the moon crash into the planets? What are these giant hands that pulled the planets away and the weird tentacle monsters? Being real, we need more episodes and information before we can get some definitive answers.
But I still need more.
I do believe we can use an unexpected source to potentially get some answers. And that source? Greek and Roman mythology. You probably know that most of the planets are named after gods from Roman mythology.
Yes.
In fact, it's such a strong tradition, it's borderline a rule that planets in our solar system must be named after said gods. And if you didn't know, Roman mythology was basically like Greek myth fanfics, with most of its deities adapted from their Greek counterparts. Zeus became Jupiter, Poseidon became Neptune, Hades became Pluto, but you got demoted, so we're not talking about you. Get out of here. The only exception there is Uranus, who is named after the Greek version of that god instead of Caelus, which was the Roman version. I'm guessing they just had to let school kids get in their jokes about looking at Uranus.
Yes.
Hats off to you, scientific community. Anyway, because these names were used to name the planets, I believe that we can look at Greek and Roman mythology to potentially work out where this story is going, or at least try to get an idea of why it's all happening in the first place. Hey, listen, it's a cryptic analog horror series with short uploads. We gotta take what we can get in terms of info. So what can we learn by looking at myths? Oh, and just for simplicity's sake, I'm just going to use the names that are actually on the planets in place of the gods here, just so things, aren't confusing. Well, of all the planets we've seen wake up, they were all powerful leaders in some regard. Jupiter was obviously the leader of the Roman pantheon. Saturn was the leader of the Titans, the predecessors of the gods, and Uranus was a primordial god who helped create the Titans. Neptune's the only real outlier here, though he was also considered a very powerful god in the pantheon, brother of Jupiter and king of the oceans. But something else interesting I found in my research, there's a strange recurring motif in these ancient myths of these gods having a relationship with and then coming into conflict with the god representing Earth, Gaia. Stick with me here. See, Uranus and Gaia gave birth to the Titans, which included Saturn, but Uranus hated them and hid them away. This understandably peeved Gaia, who helped Saturn step up and defeat Uranus. But Saturn feared that his children would do the same and ate his kids to prevent it. The old mythology is really weird, guys. This was only stopped when Gaia helped Jupiter hide and eventually overthrow Saturn and the other Titans. But then Gaia turned around again and was upset at Jupiter for imprisoning her children, the Titans, giving birth to the giants to defeat the gods. Neptune then took Jupiter's side, also putting him at odds with Gaia, at least at that time. Man, following this was a crazy really love triangle. Like we're watching a wrestling storyline, doesn't it? So think about this. All of the planets named after gods that had beef with Gaia, who represents the Earth, suddenly wake up and try to stop Gaia's children, humans, from thriving, from leaving the planet, or going to other worlds and moons entirely? Seems really sus to me, man. But the cherry on top here, Luna, the goddess representing the moon, also helped Jupiter during the big fight with Gaia. According to myth, as Gaia was searching for an herb to make the giants immortal, Luna didn't shine any light, so Gaia couldn't find it. Luna then tried to destroy the herb themselves to stop Gaia from finding it forever. I don't know about you, but again, thematically, sounds a lot like what's happening here in the series. Humanity, life, civilization, whatever you want to call it, that was like the herb that Gaia was looking for, and the moon tried to snuff it out, trying to stop Gaia or the Earth from really being able to fight back. So here's what I'm thinking. Like, we know that the ancient humans saw our original moon being destroyed and then replaced by the awakened moon. Yes. We also know that there's a weird psychic or magical or radioactive effect that can infect the minds of humans, even if the planets aren't necessarily awake yet. Like, sure, the moon juice seems to directly infect people, maybe, again, it's very unclear, but remember that kid from episode 2? Or the Doomsayer in New York? Or the cult in Namibia? They absolutely knew about the moon being awake, or were infected by the moon phase syndrome before the action of the series got started, before the moon juice was on the planet. Well, let's combine these two ideas. That would mean that this ancient event that caused widespread devastation almost certainly lived on in the cultural subconscious of humanity. And in fact, that could be the source of a lot of the mythology that inspired the names of the planets in the first place. It's kind of like a self-fulfilling prophecy, right? Oh, and just one last thing before we move on here, but when I was first researching this episode, episode, I was wondering if we were going to continue to see the other planets wake up. After
Yeah.
all, Mars, Venus, and
Oh, we
Mercury,
do.
as well as a lot of the other dwarf planets like
We
Ceres
do.
and Pluto, are also named after these mythological figures. But that doesn't appear to be the case. In episode 7, which released like in the middle of us researching this, we see what looks like the
Gotta
first
watch
infection of the
episode
solar system in
9.
10,000 BC. And though we see the big tentacle monsters interacting with the moon, Jupiter, Saturn, Uranus, and Neptune, we fly by Mars and distinctly see that it's alone. No tentacle monster in sight. So I guess those planets would be like on our side or neutral at the very least. If I were to guess a reason, well, the tentacle monsters only seem interested in 2 types of planets so far based on what we've seen. Gas giants like Jupiter, Saturn, Neptune, Uranus, and the unnamed planet we see halfway through episode 7, it's way too big to be rocky. Or planets with life, like Earth. Or the one we see at the end of episode 7.
Scans
Yeah.
reading faint signs of
Biological life.
They
Yep.
only care about gas giants and
That
planets
have
with life.
life,
And
yeah.
those scientists believe there was a chance that both Mars and Venus were once capable of supporting life. In fact, there was like a big news story that came out like the day before I'm recording this that they might have found
Yes.
a lot of evidence for life on Mars, and that
Yes.
is a world-changing piece of information.
It is.
That would have been hundreds of millions, if not even billions of years ago, way before the tentacle creatures came to the solar system in 10,000 BC. So they likely didn't give Mars, Venus, and Mercury a second thought because of that. But okay, all of that is cool, but it doesn't really tell us about what might be the biggest and most dangerous mystery left here in the series. What's
Which
up
one?
with the
The
tentacle
giant
monsters?
octopus
the
thing?
giant
I know,
hands
the
that emerged
hand.
from the void and plucked these planets away from Earth.
The hand
And
is creeping
why
me
are
out.
they doing this?
'Cause,
Again,
like,
there
how
aren't
massive
firm
is
answers
the
quite
body
yet,
it is
and
attached
Mr. Friend
to?
is uploading more of this series as we speak. But I
Yes.
think we can get an idea by, again, looking at our mythological parallels. First up, the tentacle monsters. So
Yeah.
we see these guys create moons with our very own eyes. It's kind of like their defining feature. And we've already noted that our moon is associated with the goddess Luna, who herself had creators. In myth,
Yes.
Luna was created by the titans
Hyperion
Hyperion and
and
Thea. A little
Thea.
tangent here, but in the real world, the leading
Thea.
theory about the creation of our moon is the Great Impact Hypothesis, which suggested that another planet collided with Earth and the debris created the moon.
Yes.
That planet was called Thea. Astronomers are real big nerds, and I love it. Anyway,
Was that
in the
Solar
myths,
Balls or
Hyperion
Cess
was
Balls that
also
has
imprisoned by Jupiter when he
episodes on
overthrew
that?
the Titans with the help of Gaia.
just reacted
and
to that,
Hyperion
too.
wasn't too happy about that. This could explain why the tentacle monsters are so interested in planets like Earth that have life. It's representative of any grudge that Hyperion might hold against someone like Gaia. But here's the thing. Hyperion didn't only create Luna. He was also responsible for the creation of Sol, the representation of our sun. If the tentacle monsters represent Hyperion, that could also explain why they're so interested in the gas giants. Now, this is incredibly simplified, but the biggest difference between a gas giant like Jupiter and a star like our sun is mostly just the amount of stuff in it, the amount of gases and other elements clumped together. So basically, if Jupiter just had more stuff in it, it would have become a star. Well, think about this. We also see that the gas giants wake up in this universe thanks to the tentacle monsters. So what if the end goal of these tentacle monsters has to do with stars like Sol, our sun? That's a way for the series to get even bigger, right? Have them wake up our sun just like they did the gas giants. So that potentially explains the tentacle monsters, but, well, what about the other giant hand-shaped elephant in the room? This is clearly not the same thing because it's, well, a hand, not a tentacle. At first, I wondered if they were connected in some way, like maybe the tentacle monsters are preparing the planets for harvest or something like that. But the more we've seen and the more I've sat and thought about it, I get the vibe that these things are at odds with one another.
They're just
the
like
hands seem to pluck
destroyer,
the gas
right?
giants out of space without the intervention of the monsters. They just kind of like appear and,
And they're
take
like,
them.
nope.
You know, instead of having the tentacle monsters like prepare them. And they don't travel the same way. In
No.
episode
I
7,
hate
the
the way
monster
they
just
look.
floats away at high speeds instead of using the sort of void portal that the hands create. So what's up with these things? Is there something in mythology even more powerful than the Olympians, Titans, and primordial gods? Well, you know I wouldn't ask the hypothetical question if I didn't have an answer.
Please,
though
and
beings
thank
like
you.
Gaia and Uranus were some of the first primordial gods, they still came from something else. They weren't the first beings in the universe in these myths. And the thing that came before, chaos. Yeah, like the literal concept of chaos. In Greek and Roman mythology, this was a personified character, the very first being that existed in the universe who created the other primordial gods. It was basically like the forerunner for everything, and that kind of seems like it could be a giant hand that plucks entire planets out of the sky like they're nothing.
Sounds
But the
plausible.
thing that really drives this home, that really cements this connection for me, well, in Greek, chaos means gaping or vast void. Yeah, void. Almost like a portal to another place.
Just
exactly
like what
the
we
voids
saw.
we see these hands coming out of. So what does this mean? Does having these chaotic beings come in and pluck the planets out of the sky mean that Earth and humanity have a powerful ally? Well, not necessarily. In the mythology, chaos doesn't really have an agenda. It simply is. It's a void without order, so much so that it's often described as a middle ground between the Earth and Tartarus. That's the realm that the Titans were banished to. Whatever these beings are doing here, it's certainly
I've
not
never heard
because
of that
it wants
before.
to help us. Like, it probably doesn't even know that the humans and Friend Industries even exist. No. Instead, if anything, if these chaotic beings end up saving humanity, it won't be on purpose. It'll be a side effect
Just
of
for
whatever
their
bigger plans it has going on.
whatever they want to
Also
do.
dooming the Earth to a bunch
Whatever their
of
plans
unexpected
are.
fallout. Which, hey,
my
at least it kind of fits
gosh.
the satirical tone the series has taken, doesn't it? But hey,
Uranus
that's
is gonna
just
eat
a
me.
theory. A film theory. And cut.
Well, that was pretty amazing. It's very interesting to see what the film theorists already hypothesized before the latest 2 episodes came out, because this came out after episode 7. We've now seen 2 more, and a lot of the things that they spoke about are spot on. And the other things, I'm buying it. They did their research. Make sure to go show the film theorists some love. And if you like this content, don't forget to like, comment, share, and subscribe. I'll see you guys on the next one. Bye.